It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by HP. Whenever you do your best thinking, the HP Spectre X360 is ready when inspiration strikes. With power save for battery life and focus mode to multitask, you can do your best thinking whenever and wherever it happens. The HP Spectre X360 2-in-1 convertible PC with Windows 10 saves battery life for whenever an idea hits you. HP Spectre X360, a more thoughtful laptop.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, August 16th, 2021, and welcome back in to the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we recap another rough weekend of Orioles baseball. They were swept up at Fenway Park by the Boston Red Sox, 14th time the Orioles have been swept this season, and the losing streak is now 11 games in a row, second longest losing skid of the season for the Orioles, the longest, of course, being 14 games in a row that they lost in the first half. But we're going to get you the three big takeaways from another rough weekend of Orioles baseball, and they're going to be pretty straightforward. They have to do with bad offense, bad starting pitching, and bad relief pitching for the Orioles this weekend that amounted to three more tough losses. So that's all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by another show here on the network, that is Locked On MLB. Join Walking Baseball Encyclopedia Paul Francis Sullivan, but please call him Sully, every day on Locked On MLB for a unique look at the majors, both present and past, featuring exciting guest interviews and routine check-ins from the Locked On MLB Network's team of local experts. Subscribe to Locked On MLB today on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, as you all know, it was another bad weekend of Orioles baseball. They lose all three in Boston, and the O's are now 38-78 on the season. That's right. They are 40 games under 500. They lose on Friday night by a score of 8-1. They lose Saturday 16-2. 16 was the most runs given up in any game by the Orioles so far this season. And they lose the final game Sunday 6-2 as the Red Sox complete the sweep. And again, 11 losses in a row for the Orioles. And we're going to get you the three big takeaways from the weekend. And the first big takeaway starts with the offense. And, I know the pitching was bad this weekend, and it was honestly really, really bad at times, and we will get to that. But the Orioles offense could have done a little bit more to maybe keep them in, maybe not Saturday's game when you give up 16, but at least the Friday and Sunday game, keep them a little closer. But the first big takeaway is the Orioles offense just was nowhere to be found this weekend. The O's combine in the three games for just 5 runs as a team in 3 games. I don't care how good or how bad your pitching is, you're not going to win a lot of games scoring just 5 runs over a 3-game stretch. 21 hits over the weekend for the Orioles, which isn't as bad of a number as the 5 runs looks, but they weren't able to cash in with runners in scoring position. They had an 0 for all weekend, actually until Anthony Santander's first inning RBI single on Sunday broke a long runners in scoring position drought. But really, with the offense going down, the place you have to start, and not that this is his fault because he's been the best player by far, not just on the Orioles, but one of the best in the American League all season, is with Cedric Mullins because, Mullins plays in the game on Friday. He has a 1 for 4 with a single, and then he sits in the game Saturday. Brandon Hyde gives him a day off, a full day off. He did not even enter the game later. And then on Sunday, his hitting streak was broken. Cedric Mullins with an 0 for 5 with a strikeout on Sunday snaps his hitting streak at 20 games, which matched Adam Jones, who was the last one to do that for the Orioles with a 20-game hitting streak. And he didn't even get himself on base on Sunday, so no on-base streak either now for Cedric Mullins, who has it all stop for him. And he did actually get one extra chance. You could tell on Sunday he just wasn't seeing the ball as well And heading into the ninth inning, the Orioles are trailing 6-2. Matt Barnes, the Red Sox closer, was on the hill. It looked like Cedric was not going to get a chance. He was due up fifth in the inning in the ninth, but DJ Stewart had a pinch hit double. Jorge Mateo had a 2-out infield single to keep the inning alive. And Mullins came up and flew out to center field on the second pitch to finish an 0-for-5 and squander the final chance to keep the hitting streak going. So, even that was something to look forward to. During this 11-game losing streak, every game, Cedric was working on a hitting streak and he was working to extend it, but couldn't even have that. And Mullins ended, with a DNP in one game and overall a 1-for-9 on the weekend. And that was really kind of the story for the Orioles. I mean, they hit the ball around a little bit, only the one run, but they had the 7 hits on Friday and they had 8 hits on Saturday. And, some guys came up with some knocks, but overall, they have some guys who were just really not producing whatsoever. One of the guys I wanted to highlight is Michael Franco. I mean, it has gone from bad to worse for him at the plate for the Orioles. He had just another tough weekend at the dish for the O's, and it's starting to get hard to watch. He had a 1-for-11 at Fenway this weekend. He grounded into a double play in every game, and the numbers just aren't looking good for Franco at this point. I mean, you take a look at the numbers. He's hitting .213 now with a .258 on base, .620 OPS for the season now. And, some of his numbers just not enough. I mean, 11 home runs, it's been nice to get some of those, but he's got no speed either. And, he's been better defensively, it feels like, since the first couple of months were kind of rough of the season. At third base, he's been a little better, but he's just not hitting enough for the Orioles. And again, it really showed this weekend that, you would like for one of the only veteran guys on this team in Franco, especially after the trade of Galvis, you would like for him to be a little more consistent at the plate. And that really just has not happened. And that has hurt the Orioles as well. You look at, another guy who was coming in scorching, and Anthony Santander. And it's not that he had a bad weekend. He did have 2 hits, but they were both singles. He did draw a walk. He had an RBI on Sunday. But, just the fact that he was kind of red hot coming into this series and he got a couple of knocks. He got on base 3 times in 3 games, so it's not terrible. But, the Orioles were kind of relying on him for a little bit coming into this series. I mean, really the only guy that the O's were able to turn to this weekend offensively was Pedro Severino. I mean, he had a 2-for-4 in the game on Friday night. He put up another 2-for-4 on Saturday, and then he was inches away from a home run on Sunday. Ended up getting hit by a pitch and scoring one of the Orioles' 2 runs in the Sunday game. And, he was giving them a little more offense than he has really been giving the team all year. But overall, the O's just did nothing with runners in scoring position either. And it was just tough to watch. And again, when you get a 1-for-9 weekend from Mullins and you don't even have him in the lineup in the Saturday game, you are going to struggle because he is your offense a lot of times. But even when Mullins is off for the day, or if he's literally, just having an off day, even though he's in the lineup, he had an 0-for-5 and snapped the hitting streak on Sunday. Somebody's got to step up and just drive somebody in at some point. And the Orioles just did not get that. And there wasn't anybody, you look through the weekend, there was not a player who had an 0-for this weekend. Everybody who played in a game got at least 1 hit over the weekend, but they were so scattered. None of them came in big spots that the Orioles just didn't put up any runs, and it was 5 runs in 3 games for the O's. And I don't know what's going to change much. I mean, you look at the lineup, and really the only change that could be made, we could see a Michael Franco DFA at some point. I'm sure we'll see Jahmai Jones before the season ends, hopefully inserted into this lineup. But other than that, I mean, the O's will get Ryan Mountcastle back soon, which will definitely help as he's been on the concussion IL. But other than that, they just have to have the guys that are there now just step up and be a little better at the dish because, comparing it to this rotation and what these pitchers look like, the offense is going to be the strong suit down the stretch for the Orioles. But the offense, of course, was not the only thing that went wrong for the O's. And you could argue that even though the offense only put up 5 runs, it was still better than what the pitching did this weekend. And we will start with the starting pitching when we come back. It was pretty tough to watch. We'll talk about that after the break. So we'll get back to recapping an Orioles tough weekend at Fenway Park in just a second. But first, got to tell you about Stat Hero. Did you know that 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose? Is it really that surprising, though? The game is rigged against you. You're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts who have more tools and more time. You really just don't stand a chance. Introducing Stat Hero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sportsbook that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. Your name, your stakes, and it's winner take all. You are in control. Stat Hero is daily fantasy sports the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. So go to stathero.com/lockedon, sign up for free, and right now you can get 3 times back on your first play. They're giving you a 300% match. That's unheard of. So go to stathero.com/lockedon.
David Harrison here, the Locked On Washington Football Team podcast, celebrating with you a 21 grain salute to a less boring sandwich thanks to Dave's Killer Bread. I don't know about you guys, but when I eat pizza, I eat it for the toppings, not the crust. And when I eat a sandwich, it's for what's inside the bread, not for the bread. But when I throw a sandwich on 21 whole grains and seeds, thin sliced bread from Dave's Killer Bread, it is the epitome of addition by subtraction. That thin sliced bread lets me focus on what's inside the sandwich, but also adds to the sandwich with killer taste, killer texture, killer nutrition, a subtle sweetness, and a seed-coated crust. Dave's Killer Bread is America's #1 organic bread for a reason. It tastes so stinking good. Dave's Killer Bread is made with the highest quality organic and non-GMO ingredients and is power-packed with whole grains, fiber, and protein. Visit daveskillerbread.com to learn more and look for Dave's Killer Bread in the bread aisle of your local grocery store.
So I talked about on the one hand in our first big takeaway that, you know what, the Oriole offense, 5 runs isn't going to cut it, no matter how bad the pitchers were. But on the other hand, the pitchers were bad. And when you combine to give up 30 runs in 3 games, it sometimes doesn't matter how good your offense is, because 30 runs in 3 games is usually going to mean you're getting swept. And that is what the Orioles pitching did this weekend. But especially the starting pitching was just tough to watch. And there were multiple factors with this, one being John Means was not scheduled to start this weekend. The other being Matt Harvey was the other guy not scheduled to start this weekend. And between Harvey being the Orioles' best starter in the second half and Means obviously being the Orioles' best starter all year, you are in your kind of worst possible 3-game situation with the starters they had. And then you take into account the third thing, which was we all expected Bruce Zimmerman to be activated off the injured list on Sunday and make his first start back since mid-June after that injury. But Bruce Zimmerman had a training injury as he was making his way back, sprained his ankle. Orioles had to, I guess you could say, scratch him from his start, but they never even activated him from the injured list because of the ankle injury. So instead, he stayed on the IL. They actually transferred him to the 60-day IL, which is more of a procedural move. And Brendan Hyde is now kind of uncertain whether Zimmerman will even pitch, make too many starts before this season ends. Obviously, we're still mid-August and the season goes through September, and it's just a sprained ankle, and hopefully it'll just be a couple more weeks for Zimmerman that he's out, which is the reason the Orioles put him on the 60-day injured list. That does not mean he still has 60 more days from now. He has been on the injured list for about 58 days at this point. And of course, the Orioles expected him to be back on Sunday. So since Sunday was only about the 57-day mark, you couldn't put him on the 60-day IL. You wanted him back as soon as possible. But when you put a guy on the 60-day IL, he does come off the 40-man roster. It freed up a roster spot for the Orioles to make a couple of bullpen moves, which we will talk about in the next segment before Sunday's game. But it is retroactive to when he was put on the IL, which was back on June 18th. So technically, Tuesday or Wednesday, he would actually be eligible to still come off the injured list. Now, he won't because of the sprained ankle. He's still going to be nursing that, but it's really more of a procedural move for the Orioles to get an open 40-man roster spot. But it's just, you look at it and you just go, how can stuff like this happen? I mean, Bruce had been really the Orioles' second most consistent starter all year besides John Means when he went on the injured list. And it's not like he had been amazing at times, but you knew every time he was going to give you 5 to 6 innings, 2 to 4 runs. And at this point, you would take that every single time from Bruce Zimmerman. And now we got to wait even longer. So the weekend starts with Spencer Watkins on Friday night, and after those first 3 good starts from Watkins, it hasn't been so good lately from him. He goes 4 innings, allowing 6 runs on 7 hits, 1 strikeout, 3 walks, and a home run allowed. I mean, the Red Sox just kind of tattooed Spencer Watkins on Friday night. He only got 3 swings and misses on 87 pitches. That is not good whatsoever. And really his four-seam fastball, which has been his money pitch when he was good. You think about that start at the Trop a couple of weeks ago when he struck out 7. I mean, he's dotting the fastball in the inside corner, outside corner, top of the zone, bottom of the zone, getting all these called strikes with that pitch. He only got 5 called strikes and no whiffs with that four-seam fastball. Now, again, it was right about 90-91 where he's throwing it all year, but it just wasn't the same command. And his secondaries, he has a cutter, which he likes to go to, and, some would consider his best pitch. But when he's not dotting that fastball like he was against Tampa, his secondaries are just not good enough, and especially against a lineup this good in Boston, he just got hammered. And that's what happened, and it's going to be interesting now with Spencer Watkins. I would give him a couple of more starts to see what he can do, and even if that's not working, I'd maybe move him back to the bullpen. I would like to keep him on the Major League roster, probably for the rest of the season, because there are guys that he is better than. There's guys that are worse than him on this roster. But it's going to be interesting, whenever Zimmerman comes back and, maybe some of these younger guys are getting closer to coming back, maybe, if Kyle Bradish comes up or Baumann comes up at all, or if Lowther and Wells are ready to come back, maybe Dean Kramer's ready to come back. It would be really interesting to see, where Watkins does fall in, but it hasn't been great over the last couple of starts. Then you go to Saturday where Jorge Lopez was really just abysmal. 3 1/3 innings, 7 runs on 9 hits, 1 strikeout, 2 walks, a home run allowed. He loaded up the bases with no outs in the first inning, threw a wild pitch that allowed a run to score, and then a 3-run homer from Rafael Devers. It was 4-0 Red Sox, and Jorge Lopez hadn't recorded an out in the bottom of the first inning on Saturday. It really just continued getting bad from there. And again, he throws 81 pitches, just gets 6 whiffs, much like Watkins, just wasn't fooling guys with his stuff. And it was interesting because his curveball was actually pretty good on the day. It was like the one pitch that didn't let him down, but just the fastball and the other secondaries, the changeup and the slider didn't throw much, but he was just all over the place, erratic. And, I was actually watching the Nesson broadcast all weekend with Dave O'Brien and Dennis Eckersley, and Eckersley talked a lot about the Oriole pitchers, and he talked a lot about Lopez. Like he went pretty deep in on Jorge Lopez and just talked about how, he has good stuff. And this is what we talk about here in Oriole land, but he doesn't know where it's going, and he has no consistency on the mound. And that's what we continue to see. And again, for Lopez, he's not going to be leaving the rotation anytime soon. Like, he has been the Orioles' innings eater for the entirety of 2021. He spent the whole year in the rotation. He is eating innings for the Orioles. He's going to be in this rotation, barring an injury, through the end of this 2021 season. And then the Orioles are, of course, going to have to, make a decision in the offseason. But it's, he's still going to have good starts throughout the rest of this year, because that's what he does. But then he's going to have starts that are this bad. And what the guy needs is some consistency, and he's really never found that his entire career, and that just continues. And then we get to Sunday, and of course it was supposed to be Bruce Zimmerman, but instead it's Keegan Aiken. And once again, just a bad start from Keegan Aiken. 4 innings, 3 runs on 6 hits, 2 strikeouts, 3 walks, a home run allowed, and just like Lopez on Saturday, Aiken just gets burned in the first inning. He allows a 3-run home run in the first to JD Martinez on a just spinning slider right down the middle with 2 outs. After the Orioles had actually scored the top of the first to take the lead. First inning, JD, boom, it's 3-1 Red Sox in inning number 1. Now, Aiken did settle down and pitch okay. He put up the next 3 scoreless innings, but was only able to get through 4 because that pitch count was high and came out of the game. And, once again, he was a little better than the other guys. He had 9 whiffs on 77 pitches, and he got 6 whiffs with his fastball. And, once again, that was his pitch that he went to. And, he had good command of the slider after he threw that cement mixer that allowed the 3-run homer to JD Martinez. He got 5 called strikes with that pitch throughout the rest of the game, was able to kind of put it on the corners. The fastball command was okay. He was getting some good swings and misses from it, but, just really a horrendous start. And another thing that was interesting is his velocities were up across the board, but they were weirdly up on his changeup. He was, he throws his changeup about 81. He threw a changeup that was at 86 miles an hour, and he averaged 84. He was up over 3 miles per hour on his changeup, which, can be good sometimes if your fastball velocity is up, but his fastball velocity was only up a tick. And, that can make it harder to get guys out if you're having less of a difference between your fastball and changeup. And it showed. That changeup got hit a couple of times. He wasn't missing bats with that pitch very often. And that's something to look to as well. But I mean, Keegan Aiken, we know he was starting in place of Zimmerman, but Aiken did start on Tuesday, and now with Bruce out, it just feels like they're going to keep putting him out there. He's done nothing to deserve this starting spot. I mean, maybe you keep him in the rotation. I'd rather see him in AAA Norfolk or even somewhere else at this point, but Aiken's going to stay in there, and he just kind of capped off what was a bad weekend of starting pitching, and that was the thing. Obviously the offense didn't come alive at all, but when your starting pitchers are just getting knocked around early in every single game, you have Lopez giving up 4 in the first on Saturday, you have Aiken giving up 3 in the first on Sunday, and Spencer Watkins gave up 4 runs in the second inning on Friday. The offense comes out there, it's second or third time at the plate, and the game looks almost out of reach already. You just can't have that. You need better starting pitching. And again, it would have been better if, Harvey and Means had pitched this weekend. They didn't, but still, it's got to get a little better by this time next year. The Orioles either need to add some veterans, and some of this has to do with the fact that Egan has taken a step back. Kramer has taken a large step back. He's been in AAA for a while. I think Wells has been okay. Lowther, wasn't as good as they thought he'd be and got injured. They've had to go to these guys like Spencer Watkins and others, and Jorge Lopez has just been so inconsistent. And, Bauman has been injured. Maybe he would have been ready by now. But all those things coming together, and again, it's been disappointing with some of the guys like Kramer and Aiken, but it'd be helpful to have more veteran guys like Matt Harvey in the organization who are ready to take these innings instead of giving them to Spencer Watkins and giving them to Keegan Aiken, who can't get anybody out. But the hope is that maybe the Baumans and the Bradishes and the Lowthers come up and the Alexander Wells at the end of the season and get this thing a little better, and Zimmerman comes back and, it looks a lot better in the rotation for September. But that is, it seems like a far-fetched hope at this point for the Orioles. But, the one thing that at least had been keeping the Orioles together for a while was the bullpen. And, they had the guys like Tanner Scott, Paul Fry, and Cole Sulser, Tyler Wells. They were all pitching well. That hasn't been the case recently. And, there's been some injury issues with Scott and Wells out, and Fry lost his command for a bit. But, the bullpen has even let them down. And it once again let them down this weekend. We'll talk about the big culprits in that when we come back. So we're back to the Orioles talk in just a second, but first got to tell you about Built Bar and all of their delicious flavors of protein bars. They've got flavors like coconut, like cherry barcia, like mint brownie, like German chocolate, and so many others. It's really hard to choose, which one might be your favorite. Well, if you go to BuiltBar.com right now, you can order a mixed box. They will send you 2 of each of their 9 flavors. Then you can pick and choose which one is the best. And here's the thing about Built Bars. Not only are they great tasting, but they're healthy too. That's really the best part. You can get 17 to 18 grams of protein in every single bar. They're each only about 130 to 180 calories and only 4 or 5 grams of sugar and grams of net carbs. And Built Bar is also the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team and all the medals they brought home from Tokyo. So go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. And today's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by BetOnline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Now, we've got baseball season in full swing, and you can track all the action over at BetOnline.ag. You can get all the latest news, odds, and info for really all your sporting needs. It's not just baseball as the season winds down, but also UFC and MMA action every single weekend. And how about the NFL season? Yeah, closer than you think. The Ravens just played their first preseason game on Saturday. So before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today, and you can receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use the promo code LOCKEDON. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDON for a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit at BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. So we've been over how the offense was bad. We've been over how the starting pitching was bad. And now the third big takeaway from the weekend, that the relief pitching, well, it wasn't as much the, big guns that were bad, but overall the bullpen was bad as well pretty much for the Orioles as they were swept by the Red Sox in this series. And it's a big reason why they have now lost 11 games in a row. And you look to the Friday game, and it really wasn't even a factor much on Friday. I mean, Spencer Watkins went 4 innings, but you'll take 2 innings, 1 run from Dustin Knight. you'll take 2 innings, 1 run from Cesar Valdez. That's how the Orioles closed out the game. It was pretty much a blowout. They lost 8-1, but they only had to use 3 pitchers. You get 2 innings, 2 solid innings from 2 of your kind of, not so high leverage relievers in Knight and Valdez at the moment. Cesar struck out 3 batters as well, didn't walk anyone. Dustin Knight worked around 2 walks and a hit to just give up the 1 run on a solo home run. Actually, each of them gave up a solo home run for the 1 run they allowed. But Saturday is where things started to unravel, as you can probably guess, with the Orioles giving up a season-high 16 runs in that loss on Saturday. And it was bad enough that Jorge Lopez gave up 7 runs, but Paul Fry actually came in and saved him there. He got Lopez out of a bases-loaded jam, did Paul Fry, getting a big ground ball double play, and that could have been a 7, 8, 9 or more run outing from Jorge Lopez if Fry hadn't saved him. But at that point, Lopez is out of the game. It's not looking good. It's 6-2 in the 5th. And, your Brandon Hyde and Adam Plutko has really been struggling lately. He had given up, a home run in 5 straight appearances. But, he can usually give you some length, a former starter. You're down 6-2 in the 5th. Good guy to throw in there. Hadn't pitched the last day. Try to get you 2 innings in the bullpen. Hopefully you can come back or at least, bridge the gap to your later inning, 1 inning relievers. But that's just not what happened. And really, when you look at the bullpen overall, the only person who really had a disastrous weekend was Plutko, but it got really, really bad and, just kind of ballooned everything else that's been going on in the pen. Plutko's final line in the game on Saturday. He enters with a clean 5th inning, ready to go, down 6-2. He lasts just 2/3 of an inning, allowing 7 runs on 5 hits. He strikes out 1, he walks 2, he allows 2 home runs, throwing 33 pitches in the inning, which shot his ERA up to 6.71 on the season. Just absolutely nothing worked for Adam Plutko in that inning. 33 pitches, he did get 4 whiffs, but it really didn't matter. And he was tagged for multiple home runs. JD Martinez hit a shot that was a 3-run homer that really ended the day for Plutko and may have ended his time as an Oriole, as he set or at least matched a record from long ago, giving up home runs in 6 consecutive relief appearances. He gave up 2 home runs and didn't even finish the inning in the 5th on Saturday, as they had to bring in Cesar Valdez to clean it up after he had pitched 2 innings the night before. He had to go an inning and a third and give up another run in the game Saturday just to save the bullpen a little bit. And for Adam Plutko, it was the end for him after that. He was DFA'd by the Orioles on Sunday morning after that disastrous performance. And I did just want to talk about Adam Plutko a little bit, because what a weird and just volatile season it has been for him. And with the way he's pitched, I can't imagine anyone is going to claim him on waivers, which means he's probably going to find his way down to AAA Norfolk and try and figure things out and get himself back to the big leagues before this season is over. But the 29-year-old righty, who the Orioles, acquired in the trade with Cleveland just days before opening day, they had DFA'd Yolmer Sanchez, the infielder, to make room for Plutko, who had been in Cleveland's rotation, or at least on the major league team the last 3+ seasons, but they had a 40-man roster crunch and they had some younger pitchers, younger starters they wanted to go to, and Plutko had been a major league average starter at best, and they wanted to clear space, and the Orioles said, we'll take anyone who's been able to eat innings, and it was good early on. I was surprised that Plutko only got 1 start, and it was as an opener. He never really got the chance to truly be used as a starter, which he was used mostly as in Cleveland. But you look at his April, he had a 1.20 ERA, he gave up 2 runs in 15 innings. He was getting out of some high leverage spots in April. Even at the end of May, his May was bad, but, the first half of the month, he was pretty good. Then he had 3 straight outings that were really bad, and then the wheels just fell off. His first outing of June, he gave up 5 runs over 2 innings against Cleveland, and things just went from bad to worst. He had an ERA over 6 in June. In July, he had an ERA over 5. And then it all ends with 2/3 of an inning, 7 runs against Boston on Saturday, and he gets DFA'd again. I expect him to be in Norfolk, but it's a change the Orioles had to make, and it's crazy to think that for really the first, 6 weeks basically of this season, Plutko was considered a high leverage guy by Brandon Hyde. He got a couple of save chances early in the year. He literally saved the Orioles sometimes. There was an outing at the end of April where he threw 2 1/3 scoreless in relief against the Yankees. He threw 3 scoreless in relief against the Yankees very early in the season as well. He had a big outing against Boston the opening weekend where he went 2 1/3 scoreless in relief against the Red Sox. And, he would come in for some big spots as well and, maybe get 1 or 2 outs and get the Orioles out of some bases loaded jams. We really thought this was a big time acquisition. Then he became even much worse than he had been in Cleveland, where he had been basically the last 2 years, he basically had identical about 4.86 ERAs, pitching mostly as a starter, but some as a long reliever for Cleveland. And it just got way, way worse. And you're looking at this stuff, it's low 90s fastball cutter with a breaking ball, and it's just not working. And again, I'm sure he'll be in Norfolk, he'll try to figure it out, but he gets DFA'd. They option Dustin Knight to AAA as well. And they just say, all right, let's try to run it back with a couple more guys. And the Orioles called up the right-hander Connor Wade, who had, of course, been with the big league ball club once before earlier this season, the right-hander who was signed to a minor league contract this offseason. And he was frankly horrendous the first time he was up in the big leagues with the Orioles. I mean, I didn't think he would make it back to the bigs this season as he pitched in that game against Toronto on June 26th, allowed 6 runs over an inning and 2/3 in relief. But he comes into this one, and he throws 2 scoreless innings to finish the game for the Oriole bullpen on Sunday. And the O's also called up Fernando Abad, who, of course, the 35-year-old left-handed reliever journeyman who's been with plenty of teams, including the Red Sox. He comes up, and he's added the runs. And even though his ERA says 81 right now in an Oriole uniform, I thought the stuff actually looked good from Fernando Abad, and I would like to see him stay in the bullpen for a little longer. But, that's the thing. Tanner Scott came in and gave up a couple of big hits, and the bullpen is just kind of turning on its head right now. We saw Connor Wade pitch well. You saw Marcos Duplan come in again, throw a 1-2-3 fifth inning for the Orioles. He has pitched 6 1/3 innings out of the Oriole bullpen since they called him up last week, has yet to give up a run. The ERA is still 0. And now you're wondering, who are the guys they rely on? Because Paul Fry has had a good last couple of outings, but they've come in the 4th and 5th innings, not anywhere near high leverage. So, who are your high leverage guys as Tanner Scott continues to struggle? Are they Tyler Wells, Cole Saucer, and Marcos Duplan now? It's tough to know, whereas the Orioles kind of had a set group of high leverage guys a couple of weeks ago. Now it's even more confusing, it seems, and they continue to go with the roster turnover, with Knight and Plutko going down and, Abad and Wade coming up on Sunday, and there could be more of that turnover coming, and just things just continue to look worse for this pitching staff, and that includes the bullpen, which had been a high mark for this team really throughout 2020 and for a lot of 21 as well. But at the end of the day, Orioles get swept in Fenway. They're outscored 30-5 in the 3 games. They've lost 11 in a row, and they're now 38-78 on the season. And it's not getting any easier because the Orioles are right back at it tonight, and they go to the Trop against the first-place Tampa Bay Rays, a team that has taken 11 of the 12 matchups between the two teams so far this season. And, we will see if things are getting any uglier. Rays in first place. And for the Orioles in this game tonight, it'll be Matt Harvey heading to the mound for the O's. The right-hander will make his 24th start. He has a 6.10 ERA and 103 1/3 innings on the season. His last start was a weird one against Detroit back on the 11th. 5 innings, 3 runs, 8 hits, 5 Ks, and 3 walks. He threw 4 scoreless against that one, and the Tigers got out of multiple bases-loaded jams, and then he just kind of let things get away from him. The runs finally scored in the 5th, but still has been putting together a really good second half, and the Orioles have been able to rely on Harvey somewhat here since the All-Star break and are hoping they can continue to do that. Now, he has only made 1 start against Tampa Bay so far this season, but it was not a good one. It came at Oriole Park at Camden Yards back on May 18th. He allowed 6 runs on 7 hits over just 1 2/3 innings in that one. Struck out 1, walked 1, gave up 2 homers. The hope is that it's a little better for Matt Harvey in this one. Now, the Rays, interestingly enough, they named Tuesday and Wednesday starters in this series, while as the O's named all 4 starters. The Rays did not name a starter for tonight and also did not name a starter for Thursday, which could mean, knowing the Rays, potentially there will be an opener starting tonight's game and then a bulk reliever after that for Tampa. But we will see. It's been tough for the O's against the Tampa Bay Rays, and you look ahead in the schedule right now, they got a 4-game series against a team that's beaten them up. If the O's get swept in this 4-game series, that would be a 15-game losing streak, which would be their longest of the season. But hopefully Matt Harvey can help to turn things around for the Orioles tonight at the Trop. And here on the podcast, we will be back with you tomorrow. We'll recap the action from Game 1 between the Orioles and the Rays. We will get you any Orioles news and notes as well, and then we will get back to our look at the Orioles draft picks from back in July. We continue to break down the picks and the undrafted free agent signings, get you an episode on each guy of these new guys who are getting into the organization. And exciting news on that front, a handful of the Orioles 2021 draft picks are already being promoted from the FCL to the low A Delmarva Shorebirds, the first of which was Colin Burns, the 6th round shortstop out of Tulane. Looks like Reed Trimble, who the Orioles took in the competitive balance B round, will be joining him as well. And there are murmurs that it looks like Kobe Mayo and maybe Colton Cowser, of course, the Orioles' first round pick this year, and Mayo, the 4th round pick from last year, could be joining them in Delmarva soon enough as well. So exciting to see those prospects get to full season ball. But again, we will be back with you on the pod tomorrow. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Kevin Ostreicher, host of the Locked On Ravens podcast, a daily podcast covering your favorite team. We provide Baltimore Ravens content 5 days a week, whether it's draft analysis, free agency analysis, game updates, or anything else relating to the Ravens. We have it all on our show. We provide the best daily coverage of the Baltimore Ravens. Listen to the Locked On Ravens podcast every day on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.